Hi there, and thanks for coming for another video. This is Jennifer McGuire. So I have a fun new card fold for you today. I call it the Double Z Fold card. Lila helped me come up with that name. Well, it's another way that you can present a card that looks pretty normal from the outside, but when you open it, has a little bit of a pop-up feature. The great thing about this card design is that you don't need any special dies for it. You don't need any dies, in fact, at all. And you can do different sizes or orientations. So I have several examples for you today that I wanted to share, and hopefully you'll give this Double Z Fold card design a try. Okay, so I'm going to start with a basic card design first. It's this one with the candles on it. You can see this is a vertical card, but when you open it, you've got that Z Fold card design. Let me first just show you the pieces you need to fold to create this design. I'm just going to use white cardstock for this. The first piece of cardstock you'll need is 4.5 by 7.5 inches. You'll then need to score 2 lines, one at 3.25 inch and one at 5 3/8 of an inch. I really like this Score Buddy scoring tool because it has these dimensions on here. There are lots of dimensions marked up there, so they're easy to find. So once I have those 2 score lines, I can go ahead and fold along these, and I'll create a funny looking Z fold piece. Now this is going to be the piece that we attach to our card where all of our stamping will be. For the card base, we'll have a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece that will fold in half at 4.25. That's how we typically make a note card. But then we also need to add one more score line at 2 1/8 of an inch. This is right down the center of the front of the card. We'll fold that back, and there we have our Z Fold card base. I've done many Z Fold card designs in the past, and I'll link to a video up here at the top if you want to check that out. So now we have the 2 pieces necessary to make the Double Z Fold card design. Now I'm quickly going to adhere these together just so you can see what this is like in action, and then we'll make an example using 2 pieces that are created in the same way. So I glue the smaller piece onto the bigger piece by centering there on that left hand flap. So you can see there's an even amount of space at the top and the sides. Then we're going to take this other little flap that's pointing up towards the camera, and we're going to put some adhesive on that and glue that to the inside of the card. This time I'll just push this folded Z portion into the card and then just close everything down, and that will glue it right in place. And here we have our fun Double Z Fold card design. Now I will be showing different orientations and sizes of cards using this feature throughout this video. Okay, for this first card, I'm using the new Altenew Candlelight stamp set. This is a very unique set. I don't think I have a layering set with candles. There is this larger candle design that you can use for some of your holiday cards, and then there are the birthday candles, and that's what I'm going to use today. With a few simple layering stamps, you can get a really realistic looking candle. I'll also be using the happy birthday sentiment from this. Okay, so I have the smaller of the 2 pieces that I created where we'll do our stamping. That larger area on the left will be the front of our card. Now over on the right, I have a piece of masking paper that I've cut to a rectangle that I'm positioning right over that fold line. I just wanted to be sure to mask off an area where I can write a personal sentiment on the inside of the card. Okay, so let's create a few candles. I am doing this with different Altenew inks, and I'm listing the colors above. Now these candle images are very easy to line up. You stamp the first one, the second one, the little stripes fit in between the first, and the last ones go right up against the edge. Altenew stamp sets come with a layering guide, which makes lining up these stamps easy. And these are particularly easy because you can see through the stamp to make sure they line up nicely. So I continued to add more candles, and I listed the colors that I used there at the top of the screen. Now I could have saved time, and I didn't think about it until later. I could have stamped the first layer of each candle with my MISTI stamping tool, and then just shifted the paper in my MISTI to a new location, then stamp again, and shift and stamp again, and do that for all of the stamping. I just did it individually. I then added the flames to the candles, and you can see the 3 colors I used at the top, as there are 3 parts that layer together to make the flame look realistic. So you have the base light color, then you can put on the second darkest color, and then the darkest color on top of that. Sorry my head gets in the way, but the best way to line up stamps when you're layering is to look from above. Okay, so I wanted some of my flames to kind of move a little bit so they didn't all look the same. So here I'm mounting the first layer of the flame onto my acrylic block, but I made it curve a little bit so my flame kind of goes to the side, and I stamped a few this way. I then did the same for the other layering stamps that went on top of that. So you can see how my flames all look a little bit different because I curved them a little bit on the acrylic block. So I removed the masking paper, and there I have that protected area where I can write my personal message inside. There is a stamp included in the stamp set to create the little wick for the candles, but I decided just to use a gray marker for this instead. It seemed faster to me at the time. Now I do encourage you to write your message inside before you assemble your card, as the Z-fold doesn't allow it to lay flat for adding that sentiment. And I'm stamping Happy Birthday with black ink on the front. Now for the base of my card, I decided to go with blue, and I wanted to stamp these tiny little dots from the new Altenew Dainty Swiss Dots stamp set. I'll be using this set throughout this video, and I'll show you a fun trick that you can do with this for a 2-tone look later in the video. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool and the Starlight ink color, this is the Tide Pool ink color. And I'm stamping it on 1/2 of my card, making sure my dots go right up against that score line. I will then stamp on the other side of my card, flipping it in my MISTI and lining up the dots with that score line in the center again. And I'll stamp on this side. That way the entire front of my card is covered with the dots. Now it's time to put our Z-fold card base together with our Z-fold stamped panel. So I'm putting liquid adhesive on the back of the smallest flap on the stamped panel, then only on that left hand edge, not that entire back of that area, just on the left edge. And I'll also put some on the front part of my card too. Really want to make sure these stay put. I use liquid adhesive so I can kind of wiggle and move the pieces around until they're positioned just right, but any adhesive would work. And notice that I have it centered between the top, the bottom, and the side of that. Then I just close the card all together, press down and let it dry, and then we will have the Z-fold card doubled up. I added some Aqua Shimmer pen to the flames of my candles to make them shimmery, and there we have our first version of the double Z-fold card design. Now I like how when the card is closed, it just has the few candles, but then when you open it up, there's more. I think that's fun and unexpected. And these candles are so realistic looking. Okay, my next example shows how you can create this double Z-fold card design with a square card. I thought the square worked perfect for this wreath with the sentiment in the center. And when you open it, you can see a spot for a stamp sentiment and a personalized message below. I'm using the new Altenew Peaceful Wreath stamp set. This is a quick stamp layering set because you can create half of a wreath and then stamp it again for the other half and get a beautiful layered look with very little effort. There are also additional holly leaves and peace sentiments. And here's the coordinating die set. I'll be using the peace die and the wreath die so that I can cut out my wreath when I'm done stamping. Here I have a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch white piece of cardstock, and I drew pencil lines across the center, horizontal and vertical. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool to save time here. You just need to line up your half of the wreath with the pencil line, but I decided to use the wreath die to help me. See those vertical and horizontal lines in the die? They don't actually cut. They're there to help you position. So I lined those die lines with the pencil lines on my paper. And now I'm lining up the stamp with the die. That way I can be sure I'm stamping perfectly to go inside of that die cut. I'm stamping the first half of my wreath with Sweet Leaf ink. This is a little light for a holly wreath, but I decided to stick with it. Double stamped it to make it a little darker. Now I'll rotate my paper and stamp the same thing on the other side. So this stamp was designed to do that, so that I can just easily rotate it and stamp it again, and it'll fit within that die. So next I'm going to line up the first layer of the berries, and then I'll come back and do the second layer for the leaves and the berries. Now you can see how easy this is to do with a stamping tool, but if you don't have one, you could instead use a large acrylic block. It's pretty easy to look through the block and line this particular stamp set up. So now that I've done the base green and the base red, I'm coming in with the second layer in the green and in the red. Now there are only 2 layers for this, but look how realistic it looks once you've done the stamping. I think I might use this for my holiday cards. I can stamp a bunch of wreaths, doing some mass production, die cut them all, and put a family photo in the center. Okay, so after I die cut this, I decided that the colors of inks that I used were a little too light for what I was going for. So I took some Copic markers of slightly darker shades and just added little touches of color here and there. I didn't do any fancy coloring, just little lines at the center of my leaves and little half circles around the berries. You could use any markers or colored pencils for that. Now it's time to create this square double Z fold card design, so the dimensions will be different than our first example. I have a 5x10 piece of green cardstock for my card base, and I'm scoring at 2.5 inches and 5 inches. So basically, I'm making a 5x5 note card, scoring down the center of the front of it and folding it over. So this would be a Z fold card. Now it's time to create the white area where we'll do our stamping, the other part of the double Z fold. For this, I need a piece of white cardstock that's cut to 4x9 inches. And we'll do 2 score lines again, one at 4 inches and one at 6.5 inches. Again, I'll use my bone folder to fold and then reinforce these fold lines. So I fold in half, and then I fold the other piece back on itself, and there we have our second part of the double Z fold. And this is the one that will stamp or adhere all of our things to. I used the Altenew Blessings stamp set for a sentiment to go inside of the card. I've used this one in a previous video. I'll link to it here if you want to check it out up in the top right corner. But I like that there are longer sentiments that work well for the inside of cards. I'll be stamping one of these in that center portion of our white Z fold piece. On the bottom portion, I can add a personal sentiment or a personal message for the recipient. Now on this card, I did something different than I did on the first. Notice that gold mat around our white Z fold piece. I didn't want to add another piece of cardstock in the fold because it gets bulky, so I cut up some pieces. For this card, I cut a piece of gold cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 2 1/8, and this will get adhered on that front flap of the card right up against the score line. I then have another piece that is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and I'll glue that on the inside of the card. Now there are a few other ways you could get a matted look for the white Z fold portion, but I felt that this was the easiest and added the least amount of bulk. Okay, so now it's time to add the other piece. So I'm putting strong liquid adhesive on this. Again, you could use double-sided tape or any other strong adhesive, but the advantage of using the liquid is you can kind of wiggle it around to find the perfect spot, and then it dries very quickly. So now that I've adhered the top portion to the top part of the card, we can put some liquid adhesive on the back of the small flap and adhere that into the inside of the card. And you can see I'm just lining it up with that gold mat, which makes it really easy to position just perfectly. Now it's time to add our wreath to that front of the card. I actually die cut 2 extra white leaves, not stamped, just from white cardstock, and I'm gluing them behind my stamped wreath. I'm doing this so that it stands out and has a little dimension. I could have used small pieces of foam tape, but I was afraid that the wreath would get crushed in the mail. You could die cut just a piece of craft foam and put that behind it, but I had some scraps of white cardstock I could use. I did the same with the piece die cut. I die cut 3 from white cardstock and 1 from gold, and adhered them together and then onto the card. I put some Aqua Shimmer pen onto the berries so they had some shimmer, And I put Ranger Glossy accents onto the berries for some shine and dimension. It takes a little bit of time to dry, but I think it's worth it because it gives that pop to those berries. Okay, so here you can see this square Z-fold card design. When you open it, you have the stamped greeting and room for a personalized message right below. Now this is a 5x5 card. I will link below to the 5.5-inch square envelopes that I use for cards like this. I'm really enjoying making square cards lately. I also have enjoyed using gold mirror cardstock for my die cutting because it looks like a store-bought embellishment, but doesn't cost nearly as much. Okay, my next example opens up sideways, so you have a long opening card. I'm not going to show all of the stamping in this to save time, but I'll show you all of the steps to assemble the card. I'm using the new Altenew Brilliant Baubles stamp set. This has lots of ornaments in here with very simple layering options so that you can create some fun retro looking ornaments. Here's a look at the stamping guide that comes with this stamp set so you can see how easy it is to layer up the images. I'll be using the same colors of inks that I used on my birthday card at the beginning of this video. To create the double Z fold, I'm going to start with the piece we stamp on. This is 3 1/4 by 10 inches. We're going to be doing 2 score lines, one at 2 3/4 and one at 5.5 inches. If you want to, you can take screenshots of this so that you can remember, or you can just write it down. Okay, so I'm going to fold along these to create a fun little Z fold piece, and we can start doing our stamping on this. I use the Brilliant Baubles stamp set along with my MISTI stamping tool. And I used a Happy Holiday sentiment from this Altenew Peace, Love, Joy stamp set. This is another simple layering set where you can stamp the little images inside of the bigger ones for some fun holiday images. So I'm kind of planning out where I'm going to stamp, and then I'll go through and do the soft color first for the solid images. Then I'll add the darker colors for the more detailed images. I have my piece opened up so I can see what it'll look like when the card is opened. So I skipped ahead. I did all my stamp layering. I'm just skipping that part so I can save time in the video to do other card examples too. I just followed this stamp layering guide using 3 shades on each of the ornaments. Now instead of using the line image that's included in the stamp set, I decided to use my T-roller and my Stardust glitter pen to create the strings to hang the ornaments from the top of our panel. I also use this glitter pen to add some details to the ornaments and little dots in the background. This glitter pen is a great way to add a little bit of sparkle and interest without any bulk. So instead of using gemstones, which I didn't want to use on this folded piece, I could just draw little dots with this pen. This pen has a fine tip and is very silvery, unlike the shimmer pen that I like to use when I color over an entire image. Okay, now it's time to create our Z-fold card base. I'm using a dark gray cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches. I'm going to score twice, once at 2 3/4 and once at 5.5. So basically I'm making a top fold note card and then folding it along the front half of the card. I stamped the dot background on this note card as I did the other examples and assembled it exactly like I did on the first cards. So here you can see how this card opens up to the side for a long opening card. But keep in mind you could do the same design for a vertical card, which I'll do in the next example. Here you can get a better look at the Stardust shimmer that I added with that pen. I have some details on my ornaments and then also the little dots in the background. So keep in mind all of these cards can fit in regular envelopes and don't have too much bulk because I didn't add any embellishments to them. Okay, I think this last card is the one that I enjoyed making the most because when you open it, there's a hidden gift card inside. This is a great way to present a gift card in a creative way to a recipient. And I'm going to show you how to use that dot background for a 2-tone background look. Let's start with that snowflake first. This is the Altenew Layered Snowflake die set. It has 5 dies included, from big to small, and you just glue them together to create a layered look. This would be beautiful from glitter paper or specialty cardstocks, but I just used 5 shades of pool cardstock since that's my absolute favorite color. When you have them glued together, look at the beautiful detail that you end up with. And these dies die cut beautifully. Okay, now for that double dotted background. Using that same Altenew Dainty Swiss dot background stamp that I've used many times in this video, I'm stamping my white cardstock once with Dew Drop Ink. Then I'm rotating my cardstock. The stamp is in the same place. And I'm stamping again, but this time with Limestone Ink. And check it out, you get a 2-tone dotted background. Really like that you have both options for that stamp. Okay, let's make our note card. You need a 4 1/4 inch piece by 11 inches, and we'll score it 2 3/4 and 5 1/2 inches. This is just like the last example we did. So basically, this is a top folding note card, and we just fold the front of the card in half. Next, let's create the white portion, the other part of our double Z fold. Again, this is a 3 1/4 by 10 inch piece, and we'll be scoring at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. So I used the same card design for this one and our last one. The other one just opened sideways. This one will open up and down. I also trimmed my stamped double dot piece down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, so it fits perfectly on the front of this card. Now I'm adding my layered snowflake with foam dots to that double dot piece, and I'll also stamp a sentiment on there that says "Just for You." This "Just for You" is included in that Dainty Swiss dot stamp set. Next, I can glue this to the front of our white Z fold piece, and then we can assemble our card. When you watch me assemble this, it looks a little confusing, but I promise if you create one of these cards, you'll see very easily how it comes together. For this example, I'm using a gift card inside of the Z fold. So I have this old Starbucks gift card that I just use for videos, but I'm putting a little bit of tape on the back of it and adhering it to the center portion of the card. Now this won't hurt the card. Don't use any strong double-sided tape or liquid adhesive. Just a little bit like this, or maybe some glue dots would work. You may notice that the gift card hangs out a little bit from the edges of our white panel. If you don't like that, you can make your white panel a little bit wider, but I kind of like that it sticks out a bit so you can see it from the front a bit too. And by the way, I did add a few iridescent gemstones to the snowflake just for a bit of sparkle. So with this example, you can see how you can do a vertical opening double Z fold card and how you can incorporate a gift card into the design. All right, there you have a bunch of ways to create some fun fold cards. I hope you try this. It's really fun to do. I link all of the supplies that I use in my description below. In the middle are a couple other related videos that might be worth checking out. I always appreciate when you stop by and watch these videos. It really means a lot to me. I hope you learned a lot, and we'll see you again very soon.